So, hi all. This is my big pleasure to be again with Professor Marius Usher, and it's a follow-up to his excellent talk on compensatory versus heuristic models of utility attribute choice, which if you have not watched yet, I urge you to watch before watching this interview. And I will jump right to the first question. So, Marius, thanks for coming, and can you please explain your findings to an undergrad student from unrelated field?
Yes, I assume you mean the findings that I presented in my talk, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So within the field of decision making, there is a question of how we make our decisions when there are multiple reasons or dimensions to our decisions. I mean, we know this from day-to-day life. Say we want to buy an apartment, and then we agonize for weeks or months about what's more important, how should I trade off between the space of the apartment and its location, the garden, the roof. So those are difficult things in day-to-day life, and we really are uh, we mind about them. They are not just intellectual issues. And the trouble is that what is supposed to be the normative theory of how to make such decision, which is to weight each dimension, to assign an importance weight to each dimension, and to choose the option which has a higher weighted average of value, is considered too difficult for us to do in a symbolic way in our head. Our capacity, working memory capacity, do not allow us to compute such complex algorithms. And therefore, there is the idea that the only way in which people can do such complex decisions is to just focus on partial information, like consider a single attribute, like the space of the apartment, and if that's the most important to you, just decide based on it. Now, this approach has been proposed by many researchers, and some of them thought of it as a really good strategy. Um, However, it is obvious that it's not always a good strategy, because sometimes the most important dimension will give us a decision which will go against a lot of evidence on the other less important dimensions. And the research I was focusing, or the questions I was focusing in the talk, is whether, nevertheless, people have the ability to do something which appears to be similar to the normative theory, but not in a symbolic way. And the answer we came to, I mean, we were not the first, there were some other studies demonstrating similar things. They demonstrated those in particular in probabilistic inference tasks, which have queues that are binary queues. And we extended this to multi-attribute decisions in which the attributes have values. Each attribute provides a value on a numerical scale. So it's a bit a more complex computation. And we found that nevertheless, people can do this, and they do it very fast. Definitely, it's not the case that they compute symbolically in their heads a weighted average and decide which has a larger one. And what we think is taking place, that it's a type of parallel process. We call it also a holistic process. You look at all the information and you can extract an approximate average or weighted average of that characterizes each alternative. And that is what we were focusing in the talk. And definitely there are some open questions, but yes, that's what I was trying to focus on.
Thank you. This is a great, and you move me straight to my next question, which is how do you plan to extend your research?
Yes, so one of the open questions we have here is the observation, starts from the observation that we have a lot of individual differences. So not everybody is doing the task in the same way. So despite the fact that we give a large group of participants exactly the same decision task, we still find that people deploy different decision strategies. So I was focusing before on the majority of about 60–70% of participants, which appear to deploy a holistic, we call it in decision-making, compensatory strategy, but there are a minority, a large minority, up to 40%, which still seem to prefer a strategy that requires making comparisons on a single attribute. And one question that we really want to understand is what determines those differences. I think we are still in the process of finding this out.
I see. Just a quick clarification question. When you say appear to use, you mean what's best describe their behavior, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can classify the decision strategy based on their choices. I mean, we also want another project we want to look into is to add eye tracking. And if we can add eye tracking, we can corroborate the decision strategy which we derive from choices across a block of trials by looking at how they inspect the information in each trial. So that will give us a bit more information, and that's a project we are also working on, trying to use eye tracking in order to see how people inspect, because we provide the choices in these experiments in the form of a table. So you have like columns for alternatives and rows for different attributes. And people can scan those vertically or horizontally, and we can try to find out. And maybe, as I think there was a question in the talk, at the end of my talk, is perhaps people switch strategy from trial to trial. That is possible, but if we are gonna use eye tracking, we might be able to determine this more easily.
That sounds like a challenging and promising project, and I wish you best of luck with it. And moving forward from questions about your research to more general questions, what is, in your opinion, the most pressing issue in social sciences nowadays?
Well, I mean, I suppose you expect me to say something about the replication crisis or something like that.
No, I don't have expectations actually. I'm just curious about your opinion.
Well, I don't actually believe in what one might call a most pressing question. I think there is no such one question that is the most important and people need to focus on. And in fact, this kind of idea reminds me, see, I was born in communist Romania. And I think the approach in the communist regime was that we have to provide to scientists a topic which is this is important to study. And I kind of object to this. I think people have to find what interests them. I don't think there is a one important thing. Everybody should find what interests them and what triggers their passion. And there are lots of interesting things. So, I mean, you are interested in memory or in decision making or in whatever, attention or in consciousness. I mean, all are interesting topics. And I think they are all valid and exciting.
I agree with you. I think this is the reason for the tenure, right? To give us freedom to study whatever we want to study without the pressure. At least one
Yes,
of
and
the reasons.
if I would have any recommendation, because I saw the question you sent me, is that for everyone they should find the topics that trigger their passion, the things that excite you the most. And that will change from person to person. I think, in fact, it's good. There should be diversity. If everybody will start studying the same problem, I mean, it will be much too boring.
That reminds me of a saying. I think it was Mark Twain, but I'm not sure, entirely not sure. Find the work that you enjoy, and you will not have to work till the rest of your life. Um,
Yes.
in a sense, it's
Who was
resemble.
that? Who was
I
it?
think it. I think it was Mark Twain, but I'm entirely not sure.
Mark Twain. Okay.
Yeah, I have to check. And tell me, please, what is your vision for our community 10 years from now, or say 10 years from now? Like, I mean, in the future.
Well, I guess that's also a question that one can interpret in different ways because what is our community? You see, we live here in Israel, and I suppose when I hear this question, I suppose the first thing that comes to mind is our country. And probably what bothers me the most is that I'm quite afraid we might be going backwards in terms of democracy and the values that we aspire to. So if I would have an aspiration, is that things will not go worse than they were. I think in the last 2 years, they already are quite difficult, and I'm afraid they could go worse. So, I mean, what I would aspire for a community which is based on liberal values with where people are tolerant to each other, to minorities, and people can freely decide to dedicate their lives to science, to philosophy, to anything, but not a community which will be um, prescribed to based on nationalistic or religious values. I would not like that.
This is
That's
very.
not because I have something against religion. You know, I mean, I think there can be spiritual aspects of religion, but unfortunately, some of the things we see in our political life recently are not of this type.
Mhm. This is a very important message, and I'm glad you read it. I cannot agree more. And still, I will repeat my question because honestly, my question was about the research community, like not related to Israel at all, or maybe related to Israel, but what is your vision for our research community? But again, I cannot agree more with with what you say about our country, unfortunately.
Well, for the research community, I think it should continue as it does. I mean, I think it's not in a bad situation, or at least it was not up to now. And those kind of seminars that you are initiated, I think they are a really good contribution to the community. And next, I think this week we have the ACO, Cognitive Science, Israeli Cognitive Science Society, which is also a good opportunity for people to present their research. So those are kind of good contributions which allow people to express their, to show, to get feedback on their research, to interact with each other. I mean, I'm personally also interested in interdisciplinary topics like philosophy, even exact sciences like physics, because that's where I originated from. So, I mean, yes, I think just people doing what they are doing, following their passion, writing good papers, discussing things with each other, that will be great.
Thank you. And going from the future to the past, what is, in your opinion, the most impressive finding from the, let's say, last 10 years?
Well, you mean in psychology, probably
Yes,
not
but
in,
feel free. Hmm?
you don't expect me to say something about the relativity theory or quantum
I think
theory.
it was invented somewhat
Because
before.
probably I would say, quantum theory and relativity are more, uh, definitely more impressive than what we have in social
Mhm.
sciences. But I mean, each domain has its own important. So if I will have to choose something from psychology, maybe I would go a bit more than 10 years back, and I
Mhm.
would go to, well, it was 80s or 90s, the development of connectionism because connectionism was a change of game. Before connectionism, everybody believes that the processing, the computational processing that we are doing in our mind is following a symbolic processor, as we have in our desktop computers. And that has changed under the challenge of connectionism, which shifted this from a serial sequential process to a parallel process. And that has expanded not only in psychology, in AI, all the uh, deep learning networks are based on those connectionist ideas and there is also lots of research in neuroscience. So there is a big impact of the connectionist idea, parallel distributed processing, that definitely has influenced me. And I think that psychology today is different from psychology before connectionists came up. And I think it also expanded in many other fields like computer science and others.
Yes, and yeah, definitely. Um, and tell me, please, how do you manage to find the work-life balance, if at all? How many hours are you working? Because we spoke before that academia gives freedom, but it's also a challenge in a sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely it's not something very regular that every day I work the same amount of hours. So to take an average, I would say maybe I work about an average of 8 hours a day. And they are probably not the most regular. Like, there might be days I work more and days I work less. And sometime I will go to the beach with an article and read it on the beach or at a cafe. Or some other times I will sit on my computer and write. So I'm trying to mix those things.
But it's still quite a lot. So it's nice that you're not losing your passion at your work. And
Well, I'm trying to keep on with it, but yes, I mean, I'm doing other things too.
so going to the other things, if not academia, what would you do in life? What do you think?
Well, there are things you can do even while you are in academia. Like, for example, the most obvious one is reading. Books are available to all of us, and we can get inspiration from them, literature, I mean, or
Mhm.
philosophy or whatever. So, yeah, those are things I do enjoy reading. Um, I like good literature, and also sometime I read or uh, did a bit of work in philosophy, which is not my main field, but it somehow indirectly links with things I was doing in cognitive science. So I try to find some time for, yes, a journey within some other fields. But yes, I would say reading would be a main activity for me. Other activities would be things like a bit of physical exercise, like swimming. I happen to live close to the beach, so it's 5 minutes to walk, and
Oh,
then
nice.
I enjoy football, in fact, but not playing much, unfortunately, because I don't have the right group to play. But I enjoy watching. So because I lived for quite a long time in England, I'm still somehow addicted to the Premier League. So I'm trying to watch most of the games, and not most. I mean, I follow some clubs, but also champion leagues, the European Champion League. So yeah, that would be another, let's call it weakness to watch football.
Perhaps a strength. I'm not sure because you have to have some balance. Otherwise, it's very difficult if you're
Yes, I
only
mean,
working all day long.
yes, it's possible. It provides some kind of release of tension, though. I mean, if you start being passionate about a team, then it can also cause some suffering. It comes together. But as you know, if you only win, then when you look, if you only win, then you expect the win, and then it's not a big thing. But if it's going up and down, there are more strong emotions, both good and bad. So it's
Yes,
a part of a life experience.
it's like there is no pleasure without pain in a certain
Yes,
way.
yes.
Um, and tell me, please, how do you find your research questions to work on? What gives you inspiration?
I think, I mean, reading articles, I think it's a good way to do this. You read an article and you are critical and you are thinking, well, yes, I like this, but I disagree with this point. Let's test this. So I think reading is a good starting point. And then, I mean, definitely not everything I will read will interest me. So one doesn't read randomly. One should read according to some taste. I mean, you feel what excites you. You think what those are the topics that are looks that look to you most interesting or not well understood. Start reading them, and then you see what people have done, and then you sometimes you read something and you have some objections, and that can give you a motivation to start developing I mean, you have some ideas, you try to articulate them, to make them more clear and to test them. So I think that's a natural way to do.
Okay, this is a very reasonable approach, I have to admit. And Marius, tell me please, as a very accomplished scholar, what advice will you give to young scholars if you have one on top of the ones that you already gave of working on things that are your passion?
Well, I suppose it would be to follow your heart, to find what excites you, to find your passions. I mean, first of all, you want to decide what field you want to go to. Are you gonna go into psychology or neuroscience or other sciences? But once you find a domain, even there, you need to find the questions that are exciting for you the most. So I mean, there are within psychology a lot of different questions. And once you find something that you believe is exciting, or it can act as a type of passion for you, I think it's good uh, to dive into it, to dedicate to it the time and the energy, and maybe not give up when there are some kind of setbacks. And we know there are a lot of setbacks. We run an experiment and we get negative results, and then we have to think what we want to do about that. Or sometimes we have great results, but we get the paper rejected and we think it's unfair. And then again, we need to decide what to do about that. So one has to have quite a lot of resources to overcome obstacles. Yes, probably
Resilience
it's
is very
important.
important in academia.
What?
Resilience is very important in academia.
Yes,
I agree with you.
unfortunately, it's not just the passion and the excitement, and not only the skill, because but it's not only in academia. I see this in football too. There are some great footballers who a lot of skill, but they didn't put the lot of work, and then they don't get to the peak. So not only for us, probably. There is one has needs a combination of passion, of skill, and of resilience, probably.
Thank you, and I completely agree with you. Marius, we approached the end of our interview, unfortunately for me, and you mentioned that you are an avid reader. So my last question is, which books will you recommend us to read?
Well, I I will tell you what I start with what I'm just reading now. I'm in the middle of the Brothers Karamazov. It's a
Mhm.
classic, but it's a book which, despite the fact that it was written more than 100 years ago, it's probably always kind of still relevant to our lives because Dostoevsky has an ability to get to people's mental life and to portray a lot of psychological processes of suppression. I mean, in fact, I saw on the book there was a dedication by Sigmund Freud, who called this book as the most magnificent novel ever written. So
Oh, wow.
probably it has to do something with the way the writer portrays the inner conflicts that people have. And it also has a lot of spiritual questions, philosophical and theological. So yeah, definitely I would recommend this. I also somehow enjoy reading books that are in the direction of science fiction or fantasy. So if I would recommend one, it would be there is a trilogy written by a Chinese author, translated into English definitely, called The Three Body Problem. And I think there was also a TV series on Netflix, but it's only on the first book. It's a trilogy of three books, and in fact there is a fourth one written by a fan, not the author itself, which is probably the best. And it's all quite interesting about its dealing with interaction between humans and extraterrestrial life, civilizations. But it's really developing it in very interesting directions. So yeah, what else? I mean, I was reading recently a book by one of your colleagues. Maybe you know Eldad Yehiam.
Yes, definitely.
He
The
wrote
left
a very
hand.
interesting book. I think it's called The Left Hand. I
Yes, left
recommend
hand.
it. It's quite exciting.
It's very interesting book, I agree. I happened to read it a short time ago. Um, okay, Marius, thank you very much for this interesting and inciting interview. And I again remind our listeners, if you have not listened to the DEB seminar compensatory versus heuristic models, I urge you to listen to it as well. And I again want to thank you for your time for coming to this interview. Thank you.
Bye bye.